A U.S. Marine found light in a German Shepherd puppy's eyes beneath the storm. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our marine. The storm has already swallowed half the coast, turning the night into a trembling sheet of rain and wind. Lightning flickers across the sky like a pulse losing strength. Beneath that wild canopy, Staff Sergeant Colin Mercer moves through the flooded shoulder of an empty highway, his boots sinking into mud that clings like memory. The scent of wet asphalt and salt drifts through the air, sharp and metallic, mixing with the damp wool of his jacket. He is alone, though the wind feels almost alive, whispering through broken guardrails and rattling the loose chains under the bridge above him. Colin should have been home hours ago, should have been drying off beside a heater with a mug of something warm, but grief has its own gravity. It pulls him into long drives on nights like this, nights when the world feels as heavy as the thoughts he never speaks. A distant thunder roll trembles through his ribs. He stops. Something in the darkness shifts. Not the storm. Not debris. Something smaller. Quieter. A sound carried on the wind, a thin, uneven whimper, nearly drowned by the hiss of rain. Colin's breath catches. He angles his flashlight toward the underside of the bridge. The beam wavers through the downpour, catching the glint of water pooling beneath the concrete, then slipping across the shape of a small crate lodged against the embankment. For a moment, he thinks it's empty. Just another piece of storm trash. But then the crate trembles. Once. Twice. A weak attempt, as if whatever is inside is nearly out of strength. Colin steps closer, the cold soaking through his clothes, the storm pushing against him like a hand on his chest. Easy, he murmurs to no one and to whatever waits in the dark. His light steadies. Inside the cracked wood slats, a pair of tiny eyes. Stare back, amber, clouded, barely open, yet holding something fragile and stubborn. The kind of light you only see when everything else is falling apart. A German Shepherd puppy, soaked to the bone, no bigger than his forearm, pressed against the corner of the crate as water rises around its paws. The pup doesn't bark. Doesn't cry now. Just watches him. As if recognizing something in him, a quiet hurt, a familiar cold. Colin kneels, rain dripping from his hair, breath fogging in the chill. For a heartbeat, the world stills. The storm roars on, but the space between him and that trembling pup feels carved out of time itself. Hang on, little one, he whispers, reaching toward the crate as the wind howls overhead. I've got you. Rain sweeps across the highway as Colin eases the cracked crate free from the embankment, holding it steady against the push of the wind. The puppy inside gives a faint tremor, a small gasp of air that barely rises above the storm. Colin lifts the lid with careful fingers, knowing even the smallest shake might startle the little one. The moment the opening widens, the cold night air brushes against its soaked fur, and the pup blinks as if the world is suddenly too bright. Colin slips his hands beneath the tiny body, feeling how light it is, how fragile, like holding a heartbeat with no protection. The warmth of his palms meets the chill of its trembling paws, and the contrast sends a quiet ache through his chest. He tucks the puppy inside his jacket, pulling the fabric close so the wind cannot steal what little heat remains. The pup's nose nudges weakly against his shirt, searching for comfort, or maybe just proof that someone finally stayed. You are all right, Colin whispers, not because the pup understands the words, but because saying them makes him believe they might be true. He steps back toward the road, each foot sinking slightly into the rain-soaked earth. The storm has softened just enough that the sound of distant waves reaches him, rolling in slow, tired breaths against the shore. His truck sits a few yards away, headlights dimmed by the curtain of rain, engine humming like a quiet promise. Inside the jacket, the puppy shifts again, its tiny body curling into the heat of his chest. He feels its breath, shallow but steady. A small rhythm. A stubborn rhythm. Colin opens the truck door with one hand, shielding the pup from the wind with his shoulder. The interior is dark and smells faintly of cedar from the old air freshener he keeps clipped to the vent. He settles into the driver's seat and closes the door, shutting out the worst of the storm. For the first time tonight, silence sits with him. Not complete silence, the rain still taps the roof in soft, uneven patterns, but a gentler quiet that feels almost like a heartbeat settling. The puppy's head peeks out from the jacket, eyes glossy, reflecting the glow from the dashboard lights. Colin brushes a thumb across its damp fur. "You held on longer than anyone would believe," he murmurs. The pup gives a small exhale, warm against his skin. Outside the windshield, lightning flickers far off, lighting the clouds from within. It looks less like danger now and more like a lantern glowing behind a curtain. Colin turns the key, the heater beginning to push warm air through the vents. The puppy's ears twitch at the change, its tiny body relaxing just a little. As Colin pulls onto the empty road, he glances down at the fragile life resting against him and feels something shift inside, something he has not felt in a long time. Not joy. Not yet. But a faint warmth, small as a candle flame, refusing to be blown out by the storm. The heater hums softly as Colin drives through the thinning rain, headlights stretching across the wet asphalt like quiet beams searching for something they lost long ago. The storm is no longer furious, only tired, as though it has spent its strength and now drifts away with a weary sigh. Inside the truck, warmth gathers slowly, brushing against the edges of the night. The puppy, still tucked inside Colin's jacket, gives a small shiver before settling again, its tiny breath warming the fabric near his collar. Colin steadies the wheel with one hand, the other gently cupping the little body against his chest. He can feel every tremor, every fragile inhale. The road ahead is long and empty, bordered by dark pines swaying under the last gusts of wind. Their shapes rise and fall like shadows breathing. Colin keeps glancing down, unable to help himself. The pup's eyes flutter open for a moment, catching the faint glow from the dashboard. That same soft light he saw beneath the bridge glimmers again, delicate but unbroken. "You are holding on," he murmurs, the words barely louder than a thought. The pup's ear twitches as if it understands, or at least recognizes the gentleness in his voice. A few miles ahead sits a small maintenance shed he remembers from past coastal patrols, a place where he once stopped to escape bad weather. It is not much, just an old structure with a metal roof and a stubborn lock, but it offers shelter. The storm may be easing, but the night air is cold, and the pup's body feels far too chilled. When Colin pulls off the main road, gravel crunches beneath the tires. The headlights sweep across the shed's faded paint and the single window fogged by humidity. He parks close to block the wind, then lifts the puppy from his jacket, cradling it with both hands. Its fur is still damp, cool against his skin. He presses it gently to his chest as he steps out, letting his body shield it from the breeze. The shed door creaks when he pushes it open. Inside, the air smells faintly of old lumber and dust warmed by distant summers. Colin kneels near a stack of unused tarps and spreads one out, creating a dry space. He sits, placing the puppy on his lap, cupping it carefully as if it is something precious. The pup curls instinctively into the hollow of his palm, nose pressing into his shirt, tiny paws limp from exhaustion. Colin pulls off his jacket and wraps it around the pup, layering warmth inch by inch. He leans close, exhaling softly over its fur, offering every bit of heat he has. The pup gives the smallest sigh, a fragile sound, but it carries a quiet trust that settles deep inside him. Outside, the last drops of rain patter against the metal roof, gentle now, almost rhythmic. Colin watches the little chest rise and fall, slow but steady. He places a hand over the jacket, feeling that faint heartbeat beneath his palm. "Stay with me," he whispers, not in command, but in hope. In the dim light of the shed, the puppy's eyes open one more time, reflecting a soft shimmer, like a single star pushing through the thinning storm. It is small, but it is enough. The metal roof hums softly as the last traces of rain fade into a steady hush, the kind that settles over the world after a long night of weather. Colin sits with his back against the wooden wall of the shed, feeling the cool boards through his shirt while the small weight of the puppy rests beneath his jacket. The pup's breathing is slow, uneven at times, yet it continues, a quiet determination pulsing against his chest. Colin lowers his hand, gently smoothing the fabric around the little body, making sure no draft finds its way inside. The shed smells of damp timber and old dust, but there is a faint warmth gathering, shaped by the steady exhale of the heater he brought from the truck and the human warmth he is lending to the fragile creature curled against him. The wind outside moves through the nearby pines, their branches brushing together like distant whispers. For a moment, Colin closes his eyes. He did not expect company tonight. He did not expect responsibility. Yet here he is, shielding a life that is small enough to disappear inside the folds of his jacket, small enough that he can feel each heartbeat like a tap on his ribs. The pup shifts slightly, nose pushing through the collar of the jacket to breathe in the air around him. It lets out a sound that is barely more than a hum, soft and searching. Colin lowers his palm and lets the tiny head rest beneath it. He can feel the fur, still damp but warming. The pup stirs again, opening its eyes with the slow, cautious blink of a creature returning from the edge of exhaustion. There is no fear in those eyes, only the faint glimmer he noticed beneath the bridge, a gentle light that refuses to dim. "You are safe," he murmurs, voice deepened by the stillness of the shed. The words echo softly in the small space, as if the air itself holds them close. The pup responds by nudging his thumb, a small movement, but packed with an innocence that eases something tight in his chest. Colin removes his jacket entirely now and wraps the puppy more securely in the thickest part of it, creating a cocoon of warmth. He places the makeshift bundle on his lap, keeps one hand resting over it, and with the other reaches for his canteen. He dampens his fingertip and lets the tiny tongue touch the moisture. The pup accepts it eagerly but weakly, as if thirst and strength are still negotiating with one another. Outside, a hint of silver appears behind the thinning clouds, moonlight slipping quietly into the world again. It filters through the dusty window and settles over the little scene inside the shed. Colin watches the soft glow land on the pup's fur. It makes the small body look almost luminous, as if the storm washed everything away except this faint, stubborn radiance. "You held on," he whispers. The pup's eyelids flutter, then relax as its breathing steadies. Colin leans his head back, listening to that gentle rhythm, letting the warmth of it seep into the cold places he thought would never thaw. And for the first time in a long while, the night feels less empty. Morning edges in gently, carried on a pale glow that seeps through the dusty window of the shed, touching the air with the first hint of warmth. Colin stirs as the soft light brushes his face, but it is the small movement on his lap that brings him fully awake. The puppy shifts beneath the jacket, stretching in a slow, tentative way, as if testing whether the world is safe enough to meet again. Its tiny paws press lightly against the fabric, and a faint, breathy sound escapes its throat, something between a sigh and a question. Colin lifts the edge of the jacket, letting the morning air reach the pup without stealing its warmth. The little eyes blink open, clearer now, no longer dulled by cold or exhaustion. There is a new brightness in them, soft but present, like the first spark coaxed back to life after nearly going out. "Good morning," Colin murmurs, his voice still rough from sleep but gentle in ways he does not fully recognize. The pup tilts its head, studying him with a quiet curiosity that makes the corners of his mouth soften. He adjusts the jacket, creating a small cradle for the fragile body, then lets his hand rest along its side. The fur is no longer icy, only cool, carrying the faintest warmth that was not there hours before. Outside, the storm has abandoned the coastline entirely, leaving behind a washed sky with streaks of pale blue stretching above the treetops. The scent of wet earth drifts in through the cracked window, mixed with the faint sweetness of pine needles. Colin sits in that stillness, listening to the soft rhythm of the puppy's breathing. It is steadier now, deeper, and the sound brings a quiet relief that settles low in his chest. He did not know if the little one would make it through the night, yet here it is, looking up at him with eyes that seem to say it never stopped trying. He reaches for the canteen again, moistening his fingertip before offering it to the pup. The tiny tongue touches it with more eagerness than before, a small but hopeful sign. Colin cannot help the quiet laugh that slips from him, a sound the shed has probably not heard in years. "You are tougher than you look," he whispers. The pup gives a small rumble that might be its version of agreement. After a moment, Colin carefully lifts the bundled puppy, keeping it secure against his chest as he stands. His muscles protest slightly from sleeping upright, but he barely notices. He pushes the shed door open with his shoulder and steps into the morning. The world outside glistens with rain-soaked brightness, the ground reflecting the soft sunlight like scattered mirrors. The air is crisp, cool enough to wake the senses but no longer sharp with winter's edge. He inhales deeply, letting the freshness fill him. The pup peeks from the jacket, nose twitching at the new scents carried on the breeze. "This is a better world to wake up to," Colin says softly. The pup nestles closer, its small heartbeat tapping steadily against his chest. In that moment, under the gentle light of a fragile morning, Colin feels something inside him shift, subtle but undeniable, as if the warmth he gave through the long night has found its way back into him, piece by piece. Colin walks slowly across the clearing behind the shed, the morning light soft on his shoulders as the puppy peeks from the fold of his jacket. The world feels newly washed, carrying the scent of wet pine and cool earth, and each step seems to land in a quieter, gentler rhythm than the night before. The pup lifts its tiny head, nose twitching as it studies the unfamiliar calm. Its breaths come easier now, steady puffs warming the fabric near Colin's collar. He adjusts the jacket to keep the little body snug. And continues toward his truck. The gravel glints beneath the sunlight, and the engine, still warm from the heater, sits ready to carry them toward help. Colin opens the door and settles into the driver's seat, laying the puppy carefully across his lap as he starts the vehicle. The vibration of the engine hums under them, and the pup curls instinctively into the movement, eyelids drooping but not fully closing, as if determined to stay aware of its new surroundings. "You made it through the storm," Colin murmurs, his voice low and steady. "Now we get you checked out." The pup gives a small sound, almost a reply, and nudges its nose against his hand. He strokes the soft fur, warmed now by the heater vents and the cocoon of the jacket that kept the little body alive through the night. As the truck rolls onto the highway, the sun climbs higher, turning the lingering puddles into mirrors reflecting the brightening sky. Colin notices how quiet the roads are, how peaceful the morning feels. It is hard to believe that only hours ago, this same stretch was swallowed by darkness and wind. He glances down again. The puppy is watching him, its eyes filled with a gentle steadiness that does not match its tiny frame. There is trust there, fragile but unmistakable. A trust that was not asked for but given freely, as though the pup recognizes something in him, a warmth beneath the armor, a light beneath the weariness. A few miles pass before Colin pulls into a small turnout near a scenic overlook. He parks, wanting to check the pup before continuing the drive. When he lifts the jacket, the puppy stretches with a tiny yawn, paws unfurling like small shadows against the sunlight. Colin smiles softly. "You have a little more strength now," he says. The pup blinks, then shifts to press its head gently against his palm. Colin cups it with careful fingers, feeling the pulse beneath the fur. It is faint but steady. The kind of heartbeat that insists on a chance. The breeze outside carries a cool sweetness, and the mountains beyond the overlook stand tall against the morning sky. Colin steps out for a moment, holding the pup close to his chest so the air does not chill it. The horizon glows with soft gold, a quiet promise after a long night. The pup's small body relaxes against him as it gazes outward with interest, taking in the world it almost did not live to see. Colin looks down at the little face, the eyes brightening with each minute of warmth. "You were not meant to be alone out there," he says softly. The pup lifts its gaze to him, and for a moment, it feels as if the morning pauses, holding its breath, letting the simple truth settle gently between them. Something fragile has begun to take root, a connection shaped not by chance, but by survival shared in the quiet hours before dawn. Colin settles back into the driver's seat, the puppy nestled securely in the crook of his arm as the engine hums to life once more. The mountains stand quiet in the distance, softened by the gentle light of late morning, and the air carries the cool sweetness that follows a storm's retreat. The pup blinks slowly, its tiny chest rising in a rhythm no longer fragile but still delicate enough to draw Colin's careful watch. He brushes a thumb along the edge of its ear, feeling the warmth that was absent the night before. It leans into the touch, a small gesture that settles deep in his chest. The road leads toward a small veterinary clinic he remembers passing on storm-free days. It is about 20 minutes away if the roads are clear. As he drives, the pup lifts its head from the jacket, studying the shifting scenery through the window with eyes more alert than earlier. The passing trees cast gentle patterns of shadow and light across the dashboard, and each flicker seems to catch in the pup's gaze. "You like the view," Colin murmurs. The pup gives a soft sound, pressing closer to him as if agreeing. The truck's heater fills the cab with a comforting warmth, and Colin adjusts the jacket to keep the little one wrapped like a tiny ember. He keeps one hand steady on the wheel and the other resting lightly across the puppy's back, feeling its breath move in slow, determined waves. After a few miles, he turns onto a quiet rural road lined with fences still wet from the storm. The scent of fresh hay drifts in through the open window, and the pup lifts its nose, curious and cautious at the same time. Colin smiles at the small spark in its expression. It is a good sign, awareness, interest, the earliest hints of recovery. When he slows at a stop sign, the pup shifts again, crawling higher against his chest, weak but purposeful. It places its tiny paw near the zipper of his jacket, as if anchoring itself to him. Colin steadies it with a gentle hand. "You are all right," he whispers. The words come naturally now, not out of obligation, but out of something warmer, something growing between the quiet moments. A soft hum of wind pushes through the cab, carrying the smell of damp leaves and distant water. The world feels calmer, as if inviting them forward. But then, just as Colin prepares to make the final turn toward the town, the pup's body goes still in his arms. Its breathing, once steady, dips into a shallow tilt, too faint, almost disappearing. Colin's heart tightens. He brings the truck to a careful stop on the side of the road, engine idling as he pulls the pup closer, feeling for the gentle rise and fall he had grown used to. It is there, but softer, slower, as if fading beneath the warmth he provided. "Stay with me," he whispers, voice lower, filled with an urgency shaped not by fear, but by the quiet bond formed through the night. The pup's eyes flutter open, barely, a thin shimmer of gold beneath heavy lids. It gives a small exhale that brushes against his palm, a fragile reminder that hope can dim without disappearing. Colin holds it close, drawing it into the warmth of his chest again, shielding it from the cool morning air. He feels the faint heartbeat under his hand, soft but present. And with the engine humming beneath them and the sun stretching higher across the sky, he gathers his strength, ready to carry the little life forward, no matter how fragile the rhythm becomes. Icy quiet settles over the cab, the kind that slips in when breath grows too thin to steady. Colin holds the puppy closer, feeling the faint rise and fall that has grown softer with each mile. The warmth from the heater brushes against its fur, but it does not spark the same small stirrings as before. Instead, the little body rests heavily, as if tired from fighting through too many storms for one night. Colin cups his hand beneath its head, letting his thumb rest gently along the side of its face. The pup's eyes open just enough to catch a shimmer of morning light, a fragile gold that flickers like a candle near its final stretch of wax. "You stay with me," he whispers, his voice low, steady, almost prayerful. The puppy's breath trembles once, then settles into a fragile rhythm that makes the air inside the truck hold still. He presses the pup closer to his chest, wrapping the jacket around it again as he starts driving toward town. The clinic is 15 minutes away now, maybe less if the roads stay clear. The world outside seems to sense the fragile balance inside the cab. The wind softens. The trees sway gently, casting slow-moving shadows across the pavement. Even the sky feels subdued, its pale blue muted by streaks of lingering cloud. Colin keeps one hand steady on the wheel and the other protectively holding the jacket-wrapped bundle. The pup shifts once, barely a movement, then grows still again. Too still. A cold weight drops in Colin's stomach. He pulls to the side of the quiet road, gravel crunching beneath the tires, and lowers his gaze to the tiny face resting against his hand. The pup's breath is shallow, each inhale a whisper that comes later and later, like the world is slipping farther from its grasp. "Hey," he murmurs, leaning close, letting his breath warm its fur. "You made it through the night. You do not give up now." The little eyes blink again, but only halfway, as if the effort is too much. The glow in them dims to a faint memory of itself, a fragile echo of the light he saw beneath the storm. Colin feels the world narrow, the edges blurring as he listens for the next breath. One comes, soft and thin. Another follows, weaker still. Then a pause. Long enough to make the silence inside the cab tighten around him. He shifts the pup gently in his hands, brushing his thumb across its cheek in a slow, soothing line. "I have you," he whispers. "I am right here." A final breath escapes, barely warm against his skin. Then the small body settles, not in comfort, but in a stillness that carries no rhythm at all. The quiet that follows is absolute. No movement. No tremor. No sound except the distant hush of wind against the trees. Colin sits there. Frozen in the moment, holding the little life that fought through rain and darkness only to falter in the calm of morning. He bows his head, touching his forehead lightly to the soft fur, and lets the silence wrap around them both. Outside, the world continues in gentle indifference, unaware that a tiny heartbeat has gone missing from its music. The morning light glints through the windshield, bright but tender, falling across the pup's still form like a final blessing. Icy silence lingers in the cab, a stillness so complete it feels as though the world has stopped to hold its breath with him. Colin does not move at first. His hand stays cupped around the small body, fingers resting gently along the pup's side where warmth fades too quickly. The morning light drifts across the dashboard, soft and golden, indifferent to the quiet heartbreak unfolding within reach of its glow. For a long moment, there is nothing but the sound of wind brushing the truck's windows, a sound too peaceful for the weight pressing against Colin's chest. He lowers his head, letting his forehead rest against the soft fur, and breathes in the faint scent of rain that still clings there. It reminds him of the storm, of the bridge, of the tiny spark that refused to dim beneath the water and wind. A spark he thought might grow. A spark he hoped would. He whispers a thank you, barely audible, not because he has given up, but because the little life in his hands fought so fiercely to stay. As he lifts his head, a sliver of sunlight slips through the windshield, landing across the pup's face. The light is gentle, warm, almost tender. It catches in the fur like a small lantern set against the quiet. Colin draws a slow breath, steadying himself, preparing to wrap the jacket more securely around the tiny body before driving the rest of the way to the clinic. But then, something shifts. So small he might have imagined it. A tremor, faint as the brush of a feather, moves beneath his palm. Colin freezes. His eyes lock on the pup's chest. For a heartbeat, nothing. And then, there. A shallow rise. Barely visible. Barely real. A fragile attempt. He leans closer, holding his breath as another movement stirs beneath the jacket. The pup's tiny ribs lift again, this time with the slightest catch of air, a trembling inhale that seems to pull warmth from the sunlight itself. "Easy," Colin whispers, though his own voice is unsteady, cracking softly around the edges. The pup's eyelids flutter, struggling under the weight of exhaustion. Then, with an effort so small it feels like a prayer being answered, the eyes peel open just enough for a glimmer of gold to appear, a faint, wavering shimmer, but light all the same. Colin presses his hand gently to the pup's side, offering the steady rhythm of his warmth. The pup's breath comes again, thin but present, clinging to life with a determination that makes Colin close his eyes in quiet disbelief. The morning outside grows brighter, as though the world itself leans forward, listening. A soft sound escapes the pup, not a cry, not a whimper, just a tiny exhale that carries the first hint of returning strength. Colin's shoulders loosen with a tremor of their own, a breath releasing that he did not realize he had been holding. "You came back," he murmurs, voice thick with quiet awe. The light on the windshield shifts, spilling across them both, warm and steady. In his hands, the pup takes another slow breath, fragile but growing, like a small flame coaxed back from the edge of darkness. Icy sunlight filters across the dashboard as Colin gathers the tiny bundle closer, feeling the fragile rhythm pressing softly against his palm. The little chest rises again, a breath steadier than the last, as if each inhale pulls strength from the warm glow filling the truck. The faint shimmer in the puppy's eyes flickers like a candle determined to hold its flame. Colin steadies his own breathing, letting the moment settle through him. He had prepared himself for loss, braced for the weight of it, yet here is something else entirely, a small defiance, a quiet return, a miracle unfolding in his hands. "Easy now," he whispers, voice a soft anchor in the stillness. The pup's ear twitches beneath the edge of the jacket. Its tiny nose nudges the fabric, searching for warmth, for reassurance, for the heartbeat it has come to trust. Colin lifts the bundle, bringing the little face closer to the gentle warmth of his breath. The eyes blink, slowly, fighting the heaviness, but holding just enough light to tell him it is still here, still fighting. The world outside the truck grows brighter as the sun rises above the ridge. Golden strands stretch over the treetops, touching the morning mist with a soft radiance that makes everything feel newly washed. Colin rests his hand over the pup's side and feels another breath, fuller than the last. Then another. The faintest hint of strength returns with each gentle rise of the tiny ribs. It is not enough to promise certainty, but it is enough to bring hope back into the center of his chest. He leans back in the seat, closing his eyes for a moment as he holds the puppy close. The steady hum of the engine, the warmth from the heater, and the soft glow of morning weave a quiet shelter around them both. When he opens his eyes again, the pup is looking at him, its golden shimmer clearer now, like a soft spark rekindled. Colin lets out a breath he did not realize he was holding. "There you are," he murmurs. The pup gives a faint sound, almost a reply, as its head presses lightly into his thumb. This tiny movement carries more weight than it should, a gentle reminder that even the smallest life can climb back from the edge when given warmth, patience, and a place to rest. Colin keeps his hand steady, offering that place without hesitation. The pup's breathing deepens, a fragile rhythm but no longer fading. Outside, a gentle breeze brushes across the grass, carrying the crisp scent of pine and clean air. The road ahead curves toward the town, toward help, toward possibility. Colin glances in that direction, then back at the tiny life he holds. The miracle is small, quiet, almost hidden, but real. The kind of miracle that does not shout or demand attention. It simply breathes. Slowly. Softly. Determined to stay. He presses the pup a little closer, feeling the warmth spread between them, and starts the engine forward. The road glows beneath the sunlight, bright and clear, guiding them toward whatever comes next. The road carries them toward town, glowing beneath the rising sun as if guiding each breath the puppy fights to keep. Colin keeps one hand steady on the wheel while the other cradles the small bundle against his chest, feeling the growing warmth seep through the jacket. The puppy's breathing, though still delicate, falls into a gentle rhythm that matches the hum of the engine. Each inhale feels like a quiet promise, each exhale a reminder of the storm they survived together. The town appears slowly on the horizon, rooftops catching the morning light, smoke drifting lazily from chimneys as if the world itself is waking with a long, contented sigh. Colin pulls onto a small main street lined with old brick buildings and shuttered shops. Everything glows under the soft sunlight, washed clean from the night's rain. The clinic sits at the end of the street, a modest building with a white sign and a blue awning. He parks in front, turns off the engine, and looks down at the tiny face nestled in his jacket. The puppy lifts its head slightly, eyes half open, the faint shimmer returning with a little more strength. "We are here," Colin whispers. The pup gives a soft sound, weak but filled with trust. When he steps out of the truck, the cool morning air brushes past them, carrying the scent of fresh earth and warm pavement. Colin shields the puppy with the jacket as he walks toward the clinic door. Each step feels deliberate, steady, protective. The bell above the door jingles softly when he enters, filling the quiet space with a gentle chime. The lobby is warm, lit by soft overhead lights that make the space feel safe and calm. A woman behind the counter looks up with kind eyes that soften when she sees the small bundle in Colin's arms. "We will take care of him," she says softly, guiding him toward a small exam room. Colin sits in a chair, holding the puppy close until the veterinarian arrives, a middle-aged man with gentle hands and a calm, practiced voice. He examines the pup carefully, lifting its tiny paw, listening to its heartbeat, touching its fur with thoughtful precision. "He is exhausted," the veterinarian says in a quiet tone, "but he has a strong will. Very strong." Colin lets out a breath he did not realize he was holding. The pup shifts, pressing its tiny head into Colin's palm, as if sensing the quiet relief settling over the room. The veterinarian prepares a warming pad and wraps the puppy in a soft blanket, placing it carefully in Colin's arms again. He needs rest, warmth, and someone he trusts near him. Colin nods, his hand brushing the soft fur beneath the blanket. The pup's eyes open just a fraction, catching a glimmer of light that reflects against the room's gentle glow. A small sound escapes the tiny body, not a cry, but something closer to contentment. Colin feels it settle into him like a quiet returning heartbeat. He sits there in the stillness of the exam room, holding the fragile life that has fought through darkness, storm, and silence to find its way back. And for the first time in a very long time, the weight on his chest feels lighter, warmed by the trust of a life so small yet somehow strong enough to reach him. The room remains quiet except for the soft hum of the warming pad beneath the small bundle in Colin's arms. The veterinarian steps out to prepare a few medications, leaving the door slightly ajar so the space feels open, gentle, unhurried. Morning light spills through the narrow window, bright but soft enough to cast only a warm glow across the linoleum floor. Colin sits in the wooden chair, holding the puppy close, feeling the fragile heartbeat thrum against the blanket. It is stronger now, steady in a way that feels almost miraculous after the darkness of the morning. The pup shifts lightly, its nose brushing the fabric of Colin's sleeve as though trying to memorize his scent. He lowers his hand, stroking the tiny head with a tenderness that surprises even him. The little eyes open halfway, catching the sunlight with a faint shimmer that seems to brighten each time it looks up at him. "You are safe," Colin murmurs, and the words settle in the air like a quiet truth. The puppy nudges closer, its breathing deepening, no longer the thin, wavering breaths that haunted the lonely road. Instead, a calm rhythm grows, slow and steady, sinking almost naturally with the rise and fall of Colin's chest. He marvels at how something so small can carry such a powerful sense of peace. A gentle knock sounds at the door before the veterinarian re-enters, moving with calm assurance. He checks the puppy's temperature, listens to its breathing, and watches the tiny movements beneath the blanket. "Remarkable," he says softly. "He is responding well. He must have felt safe with you." Colin glances down at the pup, which now rests more comfortably, as though the warmth of the blanket and the steady beat beneath it form a world where fear cannot find purchase. "He fought hard," Colin replies. The veterinarian nods. "And he chose to keep fighting. Sometimes that makes all the difference." The words linger, settling deeper than the surface, touching a quiet place inside Colin that he rarely acknowledges. He thinks of the storm, of the long night, of the moment when the tiny heartbeat faded and then returned like a whispered invitation to hope. As the veterinarian steps out again, Colin holds the pup a little closer. The small body fits perfectly in the cradle of his arms, as if shaped by the night they endured together. The pup blinks slowly, eyelids heavy, and gives a soft sound of contentment before nestling deeper into the blanket. Outside the window, sunlight breaks fully through the clouds, casting warm beams across the room. Dust motes drift lazily through the golden air, each one catching the light in quiet celebration. Colin watches them for a moment, then gazes back at the tiny face resting peacefully against him. The warmth rising through his chest is gentle, steady, and grounding. A feeling he has not allowed himself to feel in a very long time. The pup sighs softly, the sound so small yet so complete that it fills the room with a sense of quiet belonging. And as Colin sits there in the glow of a morning that almost never came, he realizes that the fragile life in his arms is not just healing. It is offering him something he thought he lost somewhere along the way, a reminder that even the smallest spark of trust can guide two souls back toward the light. The sunlight drifts deeper into the small exam room, warming the quiet space as if morning itself is trying to wrap both of them in gentle reassurance. Colin sits in the same wooden chair, the puppy cradled in his arms, its tiny breaths moving against the blanket in a calm, peaceful rhythm. The warmth from the window settles across his shoulders and spills over the little body resting against him. The pup shifts slightly, stretching one small paw before curling it back in, a soft sign of comfort that touches something tender inside him. The veterinarian returns briefly, checking the puppy once more, nodding with a quiet smile. "He is holding steady," he says. "With rest, warmth, and your presence, he will continue to grow stronger." The words drift through the room like a warm breeze, carrying relief that settles low in Colin's chest. When the veterinarian leaves again, closing the door gently behind him, the room becomes still. Not heavy. Not lonely. Just quiet in a way that feels earned. The puppy opens its eyes, looking up at Colin with a soft glow that seems steadier now, no longer flickering with the uncertainty of earlier hours. That small, golden shimmer, so fragile beneath the storm, now shines with a clarity that draws a slow, grateful breath from him. He brushes his thumb gently along the edge of its tiny ear. "You are something else," he murmurs. The pup nestles deeper into the blanket, letting its head rest against his hand as if it has already memorized the shape of safety. Outside the window, the breeze stirs the branches of a nearby tree, sending small shadows drifting lazily across the floor. The sunlight follows, tracing soft patterns that move like quiet blessings over the room. Colin realizes how rarely he has allowed himself to sit in a moment like this, still, grounded, present. Not haunted by memories or weighed down by expectations, but simply here, breathing beside a life that trusts him without question. The pup's breathing deepens, a slow, content rhythm that matches the steadiness rising in his own chest. It is a simple thing, yet it carries a kind of grace he has not felt in years. A reminder that healing does not always begin with grand gestures. Sometimes it starts with a fragile heartbeat choosing to stay. He watches the little chest rise and fall, each movement a quiet declaration of strength. The pup opens its eyes once more, holds his gaze for a long, unbroken second, then closes them again, not from weakness, but from peace. Colin lets the moment linger, holding it carefully, aware of how easily nights like the one before could have stolen this away. The sunlight warms the room even more, softening the edges of everything it touches. Colin rests his cheek lightly against the top of the pup's head and whispers, barely louder than a breath, "Faith does not need proof to be real." The words settle between them, simple and true, carried on a warmth that feels like a promise. The puppy exhales a tiny, content sigh, and Colin closes his eyes, letting the morning hold them both in its gentle, quiet light.